Welcome to day 10 of the Proverbs Challenge. I hope that you've been participating and connecting with us through the Proverbs Challenge. Look, let me give you an encouragement. Go back if you haven't started already and start with chapters 1 and run all the way through 9, because chapter 10 is kind of the beginning of a different turn in Proverbs, where we see a continuity of thought and communication of wisdom and ideas in chapters 1 through 9. When we get to chapter 10, we see more of that Proverbs format where each verse to a certain degree stands on its own. So you may read verse 1 and there's just that one element there and that's what it stands for. And then there's a series of other thoughts that may not all be completely connected. So make sure you go back, spend some time in 1 through 9, and then come back and join me right now for chapter 10. In chapter 10, the one thing that stands out to me is it's a chapter of contrast. We see that there's a contrast for the righteous compared to the wicked. We see a contrast in how the wicked use their tongue, how the righteous use their tongue, and the benefits and what happens when we do things God's way versus how the wicked do things their own way. And a couple of things stood out to me. We're going to start in chapter 7 or verse 17. It says, "He is in the way of life that keeps instruction, but he that refuses reproof errs." Now, I love the King James, but it might not be the easiest thing to read. So let me read that same thing to you from the Amplified Translation. "He who heeds instruction and correction is not only himself in the way of life, but also is a way of life for others. And he who neglects or refuses reproof not only himself goes astray, but also causes to err and is a path toward ruin for others." You know what that means to me is that what I found is that whenever I'm obeying God and doing the things that He's either told me to do through His Word or that I've heard from Him in prayer time, everything may not be perfect, but things go well. It's a way, it's a life, it's a path that's open. In the New Testament, God promises us that there is a good life that He has preordained for us. But what's interesting about Proverbs, the interesting thing is that not only when I'm doing well is it good for me, but I'm a way of life for other people. I liken this to kind of a road trip. I take my family out and we go on a trip and we say, hey, we're going to Tennessee. That's about 4 hours from here. We head north. But if I don't heed the map, if I don't pay attention to the instructions and the directions that I have, I can start heading out 20 west and hope to hit Tennessee, but there's no possible way that I'm going to do that traveling west. Now, what's interesting, there are road signs there that say, hey, you're headed to California, Texas next, Arizona after that. There's road signs that tell me all along the way that I'm going the wrong way. But if I refuse to take heed to those road signs, then the only place I could possibly end up in is California and not in Tennessee, where we intended to go. The challenge with that is my rations, my money for gas, my plans and preparations all were everything that I needed to get to Tennessee. But now I'm going to have some problems because I'm headed out to California and eventually I'm going to run out of the resources that were preordained for me to get me to my destination. Another thing that's interesting is in verse 29, it says, "The way of the Lord is strength to the upright." When I'm going in that way, that path of life that God has set for me, He also strengthens me. He equips me to do what it is that I've got to do to get down to where He wants me to go. Finally, I want to share one other thought that kind of came out of that same reading, and it's in verse 21. It says, "The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom." In other words, when we encourage and speak life and good words to people, we feed them. And right now, I want to take a moment to feed you. Did you know that God loves you? He says you're the apple of His eye. He's always thinking about you, ways to do you good and make you happy. I want to encourage you today to give good words to other people and to consider the path of life that you're on, and to make sure you're walking in a path of obedience to get you where you're supposed to be. Join me in this discussion You can post comments right here on this feed. Share it with other people. Tell others about our Proverbs challenge. I know if it's encouraging and a blessing to me, and it's an encouragement and blessing to you, there are a lot of other people who could join us and get the same good out of it that we are. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to share with you. I'll see you for tomorrow's Proverb of the Day.